Hello everyone, I am Alexander Vidyahin, and we're starting an open lesson on the topic which has been gaining traction in all kinds of areas of our life. I'm talking, of course, about artificial intelligence. This is the first lesson of this kind, but we're planning to make it regular. At these lessons, we're going to speak about different technology, cases, and insights, and today is our kickoff meeting, where I would like to talk about the successes of our young people and what are their interesting projects and plans in artificial intelligence. We engage with artificial intelligence all the time when we open YouTube, when we hail a taxi, when we go to streaming services, and in the new Battle Royale. Artificial intelligence is helping us in healthcare and medicine. It makes our lives easier and it reveals new opportunities. But the most inspiring thing for me personally is that today we're making only the first steps in this technology, which means we have a lot of achievements, projects and startups in store, and of course the remarkable people behind all this. Maybe among our audience today we have future Elon Musks and Zuckerbergs. At least I hope that you, thanks to this lesson, will be encouraged to go forward in this area. To make sure you benefit the most from our lesson, we invited our special guest, Anna Archibasova. Anna Archibasova, 18 years old, back in secondary school, she realized that her true passion is maths and physics. In her 10th grade, she wrote her first code, and 6 months later, she won the All-Russian School Olympiad in 4 disciplines, including physics, astronomy, and math. In 11th grade, she became an academician of Sberbank's AI Academy. Now she is focusing on developing her professional skills further in analytics and product management. She plans to develop her startup to a 1 billion scale. She is also working on freight transportation and systems for freight transport. Hello, Alexander. I'm happy to join this open lesson in this format. We're going to speak with young professionals working in artificial intelligence. They won a lot of competitions and they are ready to share their know-hows and tips and secrets of success. In the second part of the lesson, together with the Black Star label artists, we will see how different AI algorithms work. In particular, the algorithm that was developed by one of our guests. That's great. You're moving forward really fast. My question to you is, how did you start working in AI? It's an interesting story, actually. I tried my hand in Sber's hackathon in 10th grade. I failed miserably, but I watched some lessons, training lessons, and in summer I went to a school where we worked on AI algorithms, and we worked on a project that later on won in different competitions. And at one of those forums, I met Vladislav. We initiated our self-drive company. I'm not that much an AI developer. I'm developing our startup. I'm now in the startup mainstream, so to speak. My journey started thanks to Sber, and then it was constant, continuous self-improvement that leads you to different communities, the startup community, which for me are the world. How did you come up with this niche? It's not that obvious a choice. I wouldn't say it's not very obvious. Self-drive is a very promising technology, and I think in about 10 years from now, a lot of vehicles will be self-driving. We work with freight transportation. Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. It was an accident. Vladislav went to Czech. He had a friend there, and they asked him, "Look, can you make a lorry self-driving, not just a car?" And he said, "Sure, try me." So now we're working on that, together with the logistics companies, trying to implement our self-driving technologies in Russia as well. What is the average age of your team members? Our team members are pretty young. We have 3 co-founders. I'm 18. Another co-founder is 23, and the third one is 30. He's more experienced. So 23 is the average. I would say 24, 25. Yes, we're pretty young. You're a good example of how people, after school or while studying at school, embark on such fascinating projects. Thank you very much for joining us. We're very curious about the stories of other participants. They don't necessarily work on self-driving cars, but I'm sure it will be interesting nonetheless. Yes, I agree, and I'd like to point out that we have a lot of opportunities to develop in different projects, in AI projects. We have a lot of Olympiads, a lot of competitions. Maybe that's why we have so many young professionals. What else is needed to have even more young professionals? It's a tough question. Maybe big companies should initiate more internships, because before the startup, I frequently faced the situation where nobody wanted to hire a first-year student. People were cautious, but in fact, students already, during their first year, are ready to take up serious projects. Still, it's very hard in the labor market as a young student, so that would be my recommendation for large companies. I know that Spur invited Mikhail Yusnov. He's 15. It's great. I love this trend that young specialists are getting more and more in demand, but not in mass scale. Yes, I know there's this thing called ageism, right? Yes, I have to deal with it quite often. We work in serious industries, mining, cars, and when you come to a meeting, they look at you as a young girl, and you say, well, we're working on self-driving systems for freight transportation and special vehicles. And they ask me, are you sure maybe we can talk to your superiors? Is there someone older than you? It's interesting to fight those stereotypes, but it's really difficult. Awesome. Where do you see yourself when you're older? Say 30. Well, 30 years old is not that mature of an age, because I would say that young people are people up until 30, maybe even longer. I'm interested in looking for different ideas and developing them to a point where other people can use these technology, raising awareness about these technologies. Product development, I think, is essential now. It's really fascinating. There are very few specialists who really know the full cycle of how you develop a product, how to implement it, bring it to the market. That's interesting. That's why I'm an interpreter. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. I wish I was 17 again. I'm 18, actually. That's really inspiring. It's inspiring for children, I'm sure, and their parents as well. Let's introduce our other participants who are going to join us today. We have a great team of young specialists that will tell their story, how they entered the world of AI and IT. We have Denis Shilov, Nikita Kozlov, Mikhail Kozlov, Kirill Averyanov, and Daniil Kazantsev. Daniil Kazantsev, 18. He is an IT pride of Yekaterinburg, the winner of Google Science Fair, studied in Lyceum number 12, and developed an automated sign language translator for people with speech impediments based on analyzing arm movements with DNN. Daniil's ambition is to improve people's lives through technology. His near-term professional plans include developing projects to digitize signals of a human body. Nikita Kozlov, 17. He's studying in Warsaw, in the Polytechnical University, in the Department of Maths and Computer Sciences. He is the laureate and winner of many IT competitions, including the international competition among children's engineering teams, ICCET. He participated in such projects as a smart greenhouse, Black Helper, the Random Donate startup, and a lot of other commercial products. His motto is the quote from Mark Levy: a person can curse their childhood and blame everything on parents and teachers, but ultimately it's the person himself or herself that are responsible for their destiny.
Denis Shilov, 20 years old. Denis is going through a BA School of Moscow School of Economics and the London School of Economics. He was one of the winners of James Dyson Award 2020 and the one of the winners of Alibaba Get Challenge. He started a facial startup and created the gadgets that work based on the mimics. He plans to develop his career in several streams as CEO of company, as a PR director, and as a developer. Mikhail Yasnov, 15 years old. He's studying in St. Petersburg with this mathematical and physical school. Underwent internship in Sberbank was participating in creating a neural network that detected the tumors in the brain based on the MRI scans. He is one of the winners on and one of the activists of the movements of MTI for AI. Kirill Emelianov started to code at 12, and when he was 16, he started to work in VKontakte and as an iOS developer. One of the creators of one of the very popular apps there. Forbes included Kirill Averyanov in the list of one of the most promising young Russians. He does meditation and some other kinds of sports. Daniil Kazantsev, Nikita Kozlov, Denis Shilov, Mikhail Yasnov, Kirill Averyanov. We are welcoming the young and promising experts. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Today we're in line with the trends. We're meeting in online format. How do you spend your time at home? It's 1 a.m. at my place. I really want to go to bed, but I don't do it. Kirill, wait, you're in St. Petersburg, I think. I'm in LA, actually. I was born in St. Petersburg. Okay, got that. How you spend time in St. Petersburg? Well, I just walk around, watch some films, series, sometimes play some computer games. Well, I ask this question because there is a stereotype right now that IT guys have to code, or at least engage in some tech crunch, read some tech crunch in the free time. What about your relatives and your friends? What do they think about what you do? Mikhail, how do you explain to your family that you sit and code? I don't have to explain anything. I just explain what is happening, and my mother has always been very supportive about that. Basically, all my relatives and friends support my activity. I think it's really great that there is a support from the family. And what about the others? Denis? Well, my parents gave me some smart building kits and books on robotics and other things that helped me to become an IT expert. So there's nothing new for them that I do IT. My girlfriend supports me fully. She works with me on my current startup. I think it's great that you work on something together and you have a common interest. Well, guys, so you try to find this area of your activity. What are the three things that you really like in IT and AI? What motivates you? Well, I think for me is one of the most important things is that you can unlock your potential in a new area, and this is a high-tech science that is always developing, and it's always goes forward. So you're continuously in this dynamics, upward dynamics. Guys, how did you enter the IT field? Kirill, I think you have an interesting story, I think. Well, I think like when I was 9, I wanted to become a developer, and when I was 11, my mom bought me a book. I read it all. Next 2 years, I was writing some scripts. I started to earn some money on some freelance websites. And when I was 15, I was already working. And when I was 16, I became a full-time employee. I think you're quite modest here, because I think that's a great story when you work in a large IT company when you are 16. Yeah, well, that was a long time ago. I'm 19 now, so soon will be 20. Yeah, that was a long, long time ago. Well, let's go to the main questions of the discussion. Could you share your experience? How do you start? How do you achieve success? What do you have to start with in AI? Dennis, you started with a Python self-help book and Android development materials. How do you start? Well, that's a large question. When I was 11, I downloaded a Python self-help book. I played with that, and then I started to decompile the uh, the apps, the ready apps. I tried to understand what was within this app. I looked at some resources. I was doing that for a number of years, and I decided to create something by myself. I think that's a great way to develop in IT when you look at the uh, other examples and you do something by yourself. I think this is how you have to do it. And now I'm engaged in my own project. What is your project, by the way? Well, the project is that's a complex project, the neural network that identifies 12 mimical movements of the face with 98% of accuracy. And the data that we get for this neural network can be used to manage and control the equipment. For instance, you can switch on the music, or we can monitor the health, the level of stress, the concentration, the fatigue, including the fatigue of the eyes. We use the gestures and the CT scans that we get from the head as the feed data. You know, sometimes there are great applications when they read the mimic movements of the face to understand whether the person liked the ad or not. We thought about that, but we decided to focus on our current applications. But obviously, there's a wide range of applications, of course. We have to talk, I think, because, you know, it's a very relevant issue for us, you know. Concentrate on the employees. Do they work? Do they do what they have to do? Or I think that we should discuss that offline, because that's a great thing for SBIR and actually for all the others who watch us. Yeah, yeah, okay, we should have this talk. You know, I'm working on self-driving cars, and the concentration of the drivers, that's our second stream, because there's quite a lot of car accidents because the drivers got distracted, and there are many devices being developed to ensure the drivers concentrate on the road. Maybe your project will support that. Yes, I think that in 2021 the Ministry of Transport plans to implement the standards for these devices to control the tiredness and fatigue of the drivers. I think the problem here is that you have to make sure that the classification is very precise there. The risk of an error should be minimized. Therefore, you need to have a lot of money for that, for the development. And this is what we do. We actually raise money. Well, you know, 98% of accuracy for your startup, I think that's quite a good head start. Yes, but I think that we have to drive it up even further. How do you think your project will change the life of the people in a specific way? I will talk about the project in detail, maybe. We go to one of the Dubai flagship shows, and we are the second Russian company in the history that is there. We have a special reception program for the startup support from in NVIDIA. They select the best startups from the world. We have won the Alibaba competition among startups, and we have were one of the finalists of James M's award. That's the design competition. So everything is going great here, and I can tell you what we actually do. We develop the devices, the hardware and software to make people happier, because everyone, after a hard day work or study, is usually tired. Sometimes you don't even have the strength to switch on the TV. We will help you to do that from the comfort of your sofa. How do we do that? We can monitor, when you study, when you work, we can look at your physiological parameters and give you some recommendations. For instance, if your eyes are tired, we would recommend you to have a 15-minute break so that you unwind a little bit. Now, device control. For instance, you blink 2 times and the light switches off in the bathroom. You blink 3 times, some page opens. So basically, you can use our device to do all that. It tracks your health, and at the same time, it helps to control the devices. How does it work? Imagine that you have this device on you, and it it takes the signals from the head and puts them on the smartphones. It's processed by complicated algorithms. So we have 12 gestures, facial gestures. We recognize that, and the 98% of accuracy. Actually, that's the first. We were the first to achieve this type of accuracy. But anyway, all this data can be used to, for instance, track your health. How do we do that? There is a statistical relation between the blinking rate and your fatigue level. When you are under stress, your jaw becomes strained. So this helps to understand what is your health status right now. We can also understand what are you doing right now. For instance, when you read, your eyes go from left to right. When you're in social media, your eyes just go around the screen everywhere. So we can check all that to make sure that you remain happy. Blinking, moving the eyes to the left or the right, and many other things are recognized. Now we concentrate basically on mostly on IT people, because they spend a lot of time using their laptops. They also have a lot of electronic devices they have to control. According to our estimates, there are 49.5 million IT experts, but actually I think our solutions can be used in education too, because many children have a deficit of attention syndrome and hyperactivity. It's around 10% of the school kids, and it's a problem for them. So they lose concentration as the lesson goes by, and they don't get any information. So we can have this alert, that these kids do not pay attention. You have to change the lesson somehow so that they concentrate again. This is very important because this is our future. And we have 5 people in our team, but we plan to increase the headcount. So I am the founder and the developer of the server part. Lena, that's my girlfriend. She's UX and UI designer. Ilya is a data scientist. Lisa is an industrial designer, and Slava is an Android developer. And we plan to hire an iOS developer, someone who would give us consultations so when we don't understand something with physiology, so someone who is an expert in physiology. I have a question to you. You're all young and you have a great and exciting life ahead. Let's fast forward and when you're 30 years. What do you see in this when you reach 30 years? Well, it will take me 15 years to reach 30. I think that I see myself as a good expert in data science and IT, and maybe an entrepreneur. Maybe I will open some startup. I have many ideas, didn't materialize them. I think this is a kind of a strategic planning of yourself as a project. because you usually you come to a startup and they ask you the question like, how do you see yourself when you reach 30? What would be your achievements? I think that's double-edged sword really, because how do you assess yourself? It it helps. I mean, it with that you lose some variativity, because if I focus on some area, some industry, I would disregard some other industries and areas. If I say that when I reach 30, want to be a great data scientist, that would discard me from being a great expert in some other field that might be even more promising and innovative by that time. So if you answer the question, though, I think I will continue with the startups. I do it from the childhood. I'm still interested in startups. All my projects were successful, so I'm going to move in that area. I think that's a trend right now, the dynamic planning of your life. It's not that you move along some scenario, but you base your plans on according to the circumstances. Now there are new startups and technologies. People change professions and lives. Time is changing. This is actually great. This is cool. Well, that's true, but as for the work, I've always been a remote worker. As for studying, basically, I've been studying by myself all the time. I get the information from the net, from the internet, and what I can understand in 30 minutes, for some other people, it takes 1.5 hours. So I don't need to go to universities like the others do. Well, maybe next participant, Daniel. What about your project? It is too related to the to getting signals from the body, but with the electromyography. So why have you decided to do that? That's a complicated word, that's true. Electromyography is the detection of the movements. When muscles contract, the nerves send some small electrical impulses there. We can monitor that and understand how the muscles move. And that means that we know how the body parts move. So I decided to understand what would be the down-to-earth application of that. There are 466 million people in the world that are impaired in terms of hearing. They lose some of the information, and my goal is to make sure that they get all the information, that they're on the equal footing. And my solution helps them to use the gestures to talk and to communicate, even with those people who who do not know the sign language. So it is a kind of a simultaneous sign language interpretation. So we have various options for materializing that. This is one of the devices that you saw on the screen. It helps to monitor the user. The movements of the hand are being modeled, and then these data move to our great voice assistant that is installed on the mobile device. The sign language is being interpreted, and a proper sentence that is in line with all the language rules is being formed. It's in the chat. All the applications are voiced.
And this way you can have a text for the user. That ensures communication where two people using completely different means of communication can talk to each other using the way that is most convenient. On the screenshot, you can see the example where the deaf user is trying to is it an interview for a job position that involves constant communication with people. Everyone has an individual manner of speaking, and some have different patterns, some speak slower, some speak faster. My system uses the cloud platform to constantly adjust to those unique voice patterns and speaking patterns. So it's customizable to be more and more accurate, more and more precise. The initial accuracy is around 80%, but it constantly improves. It can constantly increase the longer the user actually uses the system. My company, my team also cooperates with the potential users who consult us on different issues. We very much appreciate that feedback, and we hope it will be even more convenient for the user. I think those projects are important because each one of us deserves to be heard. Thank you for that detailed story, and it's a really interesting project. I'd like to thank all of you who are developing socially significant projects. At Spur, for example, we have more than 10 million people with different impairments and disabilities. Those are the customers that should have the opportunity to use our Sberbank Online or other applications, assistance, and they have certain disabilities. So it's terrific what you're doing. Thank you very much for that. You're very welcome here. We would be very interesting to talk to you more how we can improve the lives of millions and millions of Russian people in financial industry and in other areas. This is something that you could really help us do for Russian society and even maybe globally. It's interesting to see that today our discussion involves a lot of people who work in projects for people with disabilities. Nikita, as far as I know, your project is one of those, and you worked on it for an international competition. Could you say a couple of words on it? Of course. I'll start describing the project with a simple question. Can AI replace your sensory apparatus? We have self-driving cars, we have all kinds of applications, but can we use AI not just on the roads, but for a specific group of people, meaning people with blindness or with vision impairments? There's another question. How do you communicate information about the world that this person is lacking? This is what my project is about. Imagine 253 million, 1.5 times larger than the population of Russia, cannot distinguish between different juices at a supermarket. And who is standing in front of them? Is it Mary or is it Daria? It's hard for them to operate in their own kitchen, even. Is the solution to create another walking cane, another version of traffic lights? That's not enough. That's not sufficient. And I saw that it's true when I worked with the Kaliningrad Society of People with Blindness. They use fingers to be able to get a better understanding of the world around them, but they want to receive this information fast and in a convenient way. This appliance is able to communicate information about the world that is unavailable to grasp through a walking cane, for example, or just touch. 2 simple earpieces, a very simple wearable module. This will give the person with blindness the ability to understand which juice is it. Is it orange or tomato? Etc., etc. I think this electronic assistance will be invaluable for people with visual impairments. Thank you very much. I think what you're doing is really important, and it will really help a lot of people. Kirill, my next question is for you. Hi. Can you tell us what you're working on and what are the challenges apart from staying late at night? I don't yet have a startup. I think we might be in the news soon. We have been working with potential sponsors. We are preparing for a potential announcement. I've been working all day and I've decided to stay late for this discussion. So I work, I promote it, I work on myself, I develop myself. Okay, I got it. We will be looking forward to seeing your startup among the unicorns. Can you say us what are the main principles, say, the main 3 or 5 principles to develop a startup? What should you do? I know that you have an interesting philosophy. What is it? Well, a couple of words. I've just said a couple of words. Well, success is someone who has an exit or a unicorn, so we're not yet successful, I think. I think one of the main things is to remove all the factors that distract you, focus on the goal, and work hard every day. I'm sure you understand. What is your goal? One of your goals. My goal, I'd like to have a sufficient amount of resources so that I'm able to work on important things without actually caring about those resources.
Тогда твоя цель, Кирилл, это снижение изменений климата, а не наличие ресурсов для того, чтобы этим заниматься.
Well, if you want to work on such goals, it's probably not about resources, but climate change, rather. I'm sure a lot of doors will open for you. Good luck. Guys, I also have a question about higher education and training. Do you think higher education is something you need? And what is the best way to study? Is it online or offline? Yes, there was an interesting case where people were taking an exam. We had to take an exam. We had to do it online, of course, because of COVID. That was an interesting experience for me. But speaking of education and its online modification, which is inevitable because of COVID, I really think that first, for me, as a computer scientist, education is necessary to be able to develop algorithms and work on neural networks. And at the same time, I really liked my first 2 weeks in Warsaw, where I had lessons offline, where I could immediately talk to a professor, to a member of faculty, without having to write an email and wait for an answer. Thank you. Daniil? I think there are no such things which you could not master on your own, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that higher education is not necessary. Higher education is just a tool. It's not a silver bullet. I think a university is just it is not a way to get some knowledge just readily available without having to further work on it. I think it's great if you have access to higher education, and you should use that chance if you have it. Does any of you think that higher education is not necessary? Interestingly enough, I haven't finished school, and I think the education system is now broken, not just in Russia, but in the US as well. The only thing that matters, I think, is how a person approaches to education, and as Daniil said, how a person approaches to self-development. I don't think education is unnecessary. It's just that education, for example, in universities and in higher education institutions, there are a lot of tests, a lot of exams, and at the same time, there is a wealth of information in the internet. Yes, but a university is not just knowledge and information, it's an interesting university and student community. A lot of interesting projects and startups are developed within those communities, those groups of students. Communities are all over the place. Twitter is a good example. The Twitter community, for instance. There are a lot of sub-communities there. There are a lot of communities both online and offline. I am a member of different communities, but I've never gone. I have never gone to university. But Twitter versus offline communication, could that really be comparable? And also professionals who really know their industry inside and out. Are they all on Twitter? Yes, many of them are, and if not, I can email such professionals, and I've already seen that from my experience. Misha, what about you? You are just 15 years old. You're in 9th grade, but you've already completed an internship at Sberbank, a practice training at Sberbank. What is your journey in IT? It all started with robotics. In 3rd grade, I went to a school group on robotics. Then at some point, when I was in 6th grade, I realized that I'm interested in machine learning, in AI, implemented in our robots. But before that, I only worked on robots without even venturing into AI. Then, through family and friends, through different communities, I started my path in that world of AI. I think you're pretty successful in it so far. You've had a project on analyzing MRI images and AI there. How did you join it? Well, first, we started working on neural networks for assessing matches, but then we decided to switch to a more significant topic, so it became a full-fledged IT project. That's great, even though analyzing matches is really cool too. At the Sberbank hackathon, we did that together. If you remember 2 years ago, we analyzed Dota 2 game. Right. Misha, you practiced at Sber. What was interesting there? Was there anything challenging? Yes, plenty. I was surprised to see that it's not a standard office space as I imagined it. I thought an office is this brick and mortar box where people sit in suits and working with papers. And then I came to Sber and I saw a modern glass building with beanbags, with very beautiful meeting rooms. And people are not wearing suits or uniforms, they wear whatever they want. I really liked that training. I met a lot of people who are very knowledgeable in machine learning. It was really interesting to talk to them and work on common projects with them. What was the project that you enjoyed the most? Creating paintings. When we take a classic painting and imagine Scream by Edward Munch, and we represented it in graffiti form. That was very cool and beautiful. Do you think in the future there will be pieces of art created by AI which will cost billions of dollars, and how AI is going to impact art? I think there will be a lot of paintings created by AI. We already see that this is a reality. But the question is whether it will be copying a style of a specific painter, Or it will be just random pixels that will transform into a beautiful picture that hasn't been created yet by anyone. And if it's the latter, then the painting could be worth a lot of money, I think. Is there value if it can be generated mainstreamly all the time? AI doesn't get tired. But there have been painters who are very prolific, who created a lot of paintings. Not each of them becomes a masterpiece. Andy Warhol is as an interesting example. He used templates to create his paintings, but his paintings are still worth a lot of money. You did a great job. You've achieved quite a lot at such an early age. Continue to develop yourself, your skills. I'm sure you'll become a great specialist. You're great already. Thank you very much, guys, for your stories, for your vision of yourself when you're 30. My wish to those who are working on startups to become unicorns, those who would like to develop academically, I hope you will make breakthrough discoveries, and I hope you will enjoy it. You will have a lot of fun on your journey. Let's move to a brief virtual game. We're interested in how you see the likelihood of implementing in real life the technology that we see in movies. We'll show you snippets from those movies, and we'll talk about how probable it is and when. How many years should we wait until that point comes? Let's get to the game. We have our first frame. It's hard to guess which movie that is, but it's a pretty well-known, popular movie. What is it, do you think? Any ideas, any guesses? The Fifth Element? Exactly. What do you think is the most advanced futuristic technology? Flying cars? Right. Do you think it has any promise for the near future, or how soon will we be able to fly in our cars? Will they be self-driving? I think you are more apt to answer that, since you're working on innovations in automated and in motor vehicles. Well, it's not the entirety of transportation. I know about the industry, but only on ground vehicles. What about the more futuristic question about the flying cars? Well, the problem is that they will make a lot of noise, obviously, when they fly. So if they fly around along our streets, that will create a lot of noise, and at night that will be a nuisance. So commercial application in cities, I think, is not very promising. In more remote rural locations, they will probably not be that much of a nuisance, but in the city they will create too much noise. Not very convenient. Also, there's a risk that they will run into a building or crash into something. So in cities, I don't think this has any probable application, and if it does, we'll have to take care of those problems with noise. I think the problem of traffic jams will be solved. Not sure about the noise. I think safety issues, we still have safety issues with the on-ground transportation. So applying this perspective to flying cars, it's probably strange. Yes, but you don't have a flat, your house is not standing in the middle of a highway. And imagine you will have a highway right outside your window. I think a difficult task will be to adjust the trajectories for those flying cars. We have a road, a clearly delineated space where the car can move along. With flying cars, who can fly anywhere, not just along the roads, it will be hard to delineate the space, especially in cities, to ensure that drivers in those beautiful cars were flying everywhere, creating accidents.
Yeah, by the way, question. What if engine breaks? I mean, if you are on a normal car, you just stop. if this is a flying car, well, there should be some technology that would support it in the air. You know, whatever the engine, even if the engine fails, hypothetically, might use some magnetic fields, and that means that doesn't really, we don't really need in the engine. You know, colleagues, maybe this discussion, we will have this discussion in a separate stream. Maybe during the next conference, we'll have a special AI-driven flying transportation. Will be one of the streams on the AI journey. Let's look at the other film. The other picture, I think it's easier here. Yeah. It's Ready Player One, yeah, of course. Well, I mean, given the fact that if the entire world plays with that, I mean, that means that if everyone is in virtual reality, that means that no one will support the reality, you know, and that means that everyone will just be playing. And but I mean, yeah, people, you know, in this movie, people were living in the reality too. Well, I think that it is possible, you know. I mean, it's just a generation procedure, so to speak. So, I mean, the worlds in Minecraft is limited by the maximum length of 64-bit number. As for the mass, given the fact that it is going to be a mass multiplayer game, well, you know, I mean, this thing is quicker. I mean, the new versions are quicker, less power hungry. So soon we will maybe be able to do that. Another question. Currently, all the education is online. Do you think these games will improve the learning or they will distract people? On the contrary, you remember this video from YouTube when a professor used a marker and they used the game to hold a geometry lesson. I think that's great. Really, it is great. You know, there were lectures in Minecraft. I saw it too. Depends on the pupil, of course, on the student. Those who don't want to do that, they will be distracted anyway. Those who need it, you know, this interactive format might actually help. That is great. Thanks. Something that we can discuss even further. Let's go to the next movie. Maybe it is quite understandable here too. Any ideas? Avatar. Yeah, it is Avatar when you manage your consciousness with the avatar. Currently, we have some projects that you can manage and control something with your mimics and gestures. So maybe we will move to this stage where we'll be able to, you know, manage the entire personality, entire human being in a creature, you know, in another world. What do you mean by control? So you control your avatar in the real world. So you have an avatar in the real world, you live within this avatar, but you basically stay in one place, like an avatar. If you are just lying and not doing anything, in Avatar it worked like that, like you kind of move the consciousness to another creature, like you're in another real, you're like within this creature, yeah. I think it's very unlikely. It will need some weird stimulation of the brain to move their consciousness somewhere. I think that you will need to have some neurobiological surgery. You will just... I think it's very dangerous. What about Neuralink of Elon Musk? I think that we're still quite... I mean, he is a great mystifier. I mean, we need people like Musk, you know, like who inspires us. And Musk is certainly this kind of person. But as for Neuralink, I have great doubts. Maybe 10%. of what he promises will be can be materialized, because you cannot read the information from all points of the brain. I think it's unreal, real. Well, Musk is a visionary, of course, but don't you think that these visionaries actually push the technology, promote the technology? People focus on the idea more, and you get the ready products, not now, but maybe in a decade. Well, I don't think we'll get that in a decade. But as for the visionary approach and inspiration, I have said that it's very important. The sci-fi authors, including the authors of the 20th century, played a great role in developing of these technologies that we have right now, because many of the technologies that we see and we use now, this reality is something that used to be sci-fi, described by sci-fi authors. Maybe it will be done in some point of time, but not in a decade. We can't really answer the question, what is consciousness, and how does the highest nerve activity works. I do agree with Denis. I don't think we'll see it in 10 years or even in 50 years, unless we answer the question, what is consciousness in the first place. And then we need to think about how to transfer this consciousness, really. So, let's start with the emulation of the brain. We even don't have the capacity to emulate the human brain. And yeah, so guys, thank you so much. It was my great pleasure to listen to that discussion. Very good professional and visionary level. I'm really happy that you have you forecast for the horizon that is much longer than the horizon that I asked in the previous question. Guys, thank you so much. I think that the next AI open lesson, maybe, should be organized as some interactive game within, and it might be very interesting and exciting too. Guys, good luck. Thank you. When you look at these guys, these projects, you want to move forward, you want to do the same. And let's see how these algorithms make great pictures from the music. And now, my pleasure to give the floor to Maxim Yeremenko. He is the head of data science function in Sber. He is going to co-host the session with Pashu, the CEO and co-founder of Black Star label. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It is my great pleasure to be here on the open lesson on AI Journey Junior 2020. It is a special pleasure for us because we're not an IT company. We're a company that specializes in entertainment, because Black Star gives you great experience. Our main values are human emotions and innovations, because this is what helps to create something great, on the border between technologies and creativity. We're going to participate in one of the experiments. There's one major task right now in the world to make sure that AI understands people on the language. We understand the language of emotion, and this is the language of the painting and music. Today, with the young artists that actually were born with gadgets in their hands, we'll try to do that. This will be an experiment. The AI can understand the sense of the text and can therefore have some artwork done, and AI is going to be a part of the performance. How do we do that? We generated a video based on the music and used the full text using the state-of-the-art neural network, a big gun. That's one of the technologies. The second technology, as BERT, is used to understand the common sense from the language line. It is a model that helps to get the vector from a sentence, or to understand, and then these vectors are combined. This is how you select the category that is understood by Big Gun, and then using Big Gun you can generate a picture with the image of the object from this category. You use the same procedure for each song, and then you get the really great video that are in line with the message of the music, and what are you going to see in the performance today will give you some new experiences from the songs that you already know. Maybe we should start? Yeah, Maxim, by the way, a great bonus is the following. Yegor Shchipa, in his performance, an AI made around 300 prints that this artist can use in his fashion collection. Yes, for sure, you have a great story as a producer. Yegor Shchipa, together with AI, went outside of the boundaries of music industry. Can you imagine what AI will give us? Let's look at Yegor's experiment on the Dior song.
Вдох, так пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечно, вот идиот. Делаю вдох, так пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечно, вот идиот. Я хочу, чтобы ты мне говорила о любви. Никого не слушай, ведь я лучше, чем они. У меня есть чувства, если хочешь, забери. Ничего не жалко для тебя, бэйби. Когда жить до утра, расскажи мне сейчас. Напиши про себя, мне нужно все это знать. Время медленный яд, это точно весна. Твои фотки пожар, ведь я сгораю. Я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. Я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. Я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. Я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. Оставь мне ожог, поцелуй мои губы. 100 звонков, это твои подруги. Я не хочу отпускать ее руку. 5 минут превратились в секунду. Я не могу о тебе не думать. Ревновать каждый раз, знаю, что глупо. Самая трушная среди всех кукол. Знаю, что тебя найдут. И я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. И я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. И я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. И я делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечность, вот идиот. Делаю вдох, так пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечно, вот идиот. Делаю вдох, пахнет Диор. Я искал тебя вечно, вот идиот.
Только что
Yeah, right now we have understood what AI thinks the song "How Does Dior Perfume Smells Like," but it gave the whole range of the different associations: the fountain, the diving, the Stella, or even the soap bubbles. That's how Dior smells like, as the song goes. Yeah, because you know there was also the concept of time, as you saw, the sand clock. Igor, what was your take on that? Yeah, I'm really happy that AI, you know, when I talked about the smell of Dior, they showed some dogs and some other things, but humans. That means that AI really understood the sense of this song. I'm at home. This is the next song. The AI analyzed the music piece itself and used 1 billion images and then generated more than 400 new paintings and images. Where am I? That's the one of the verses in the song, and let's look at that.
Угадай, где я дома. Угадай, как я в норме. У меня цель, и я о ней помню. Я варю контент как повар. Угадай, где я дома. Угадай, как я в норме. У меня цель, и я о ней помню. Я варю контент как повар. Аля собирает лего, я пишу трек. Ты стоишь, я поднимаюсь наверх. Больше работы, ближе успех. Понял, почему теперь я лучше их всех. Я не трачу зря время. Что будет потом? Ты выйдешь погулять. гулять, а я закончу альбом. Догоняй или стой? Даня вас предупреждал, что нужно думать головой. Дай где я? Я дома. Угадай, как я в норме. У меня цель, и я о ней помню. Я варю контент как повар. Угадай, где я? Я дома. Угадай, как я в норме. У меня цель, и я о ней помню. Я варю контент как повар. Я родился в России, детка, я непобедим. Гена сила ушатать врагов один за другим. Мы с малышкой челдой, спасибо, карантин. Если хочешь навредить, не стой на пути. Все будет хорошо, несмотря ни на что. Нашу гонку не прервали, это просто пит-стоп. Сними видео в ТикТок, докажи, что ты топ. Со мной дэнсит вся Россия, остальное потом. Я самый классный. Угадай, где я дома. Угадай, как я в норме. У меня цель, и я о ней помню. Я варю контент как повар. Угадай, где я дома. Угадай, как я в норме. У меня цель, и я о ней помню. Я варю контент как повар.
Есть вечный вопрос, чем
Now there's an eternal question. AI and artificial intelligence and human intelligence. What's the reason? Artificial intelligence can feel the music, can understand everything, and can actually create. That was the difference. It couldn't create. Now, visualization of another song, Credo. Let's look at that.
Если не по себе, значит не с тем, значит не там мы наедине. Шум от пленки кассет, обратный билет. Молча уйти, так будет проще всем. Пишем кратко, непонятно. Причесал сам свою правду. На пол жемчуг, мне не легче. Этот вечер бесконечный. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Но бывает так, что одиноким лучше всех. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Это так абстрактно, это бабочки эффект. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Но бывает так, что одиноким лучше всех. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Это так абстрактно, это бабочки эффект. Еле шепчет не о вечном, рассыпая наши мечты. Если в сердце общежитие, мне не место, мне не быть там. Если не по себе, значит не с тем, значит не там мы наедине. Шум от пленки кассет, обратный билет. Молча уйти, так будет проще всем. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Но бывает так, что одиноким лучше всех. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Это так абстрактно, это бабочки эффект. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Но бывает так, что одиноким лучше всех. Каждому по факту рядом нужен человек. Это так абстрактно, это бабочки эффект.
с чем у вас ассоциируется
Now,
слово Фэнди?
Fendi. What do you associate this word with? If I say 10 times. We'll have Fendi hoodie, Fendi glasses, Fendi mask for sleep, and mask for the face, and Fendi 80. When this guy said sang this Fendi 80 times, the AI had this following associations. Look at that.
Работаем много, мы мутим нули. Сутки малые, мы летим на Олимп. Вы думали, сдамся, но я лишь топил. Качаюсь и скилл, делаю стиль. Работаем много, мы мутим нули. Сутки малые, мы летим на Олимп. Вы думали, сдамся, но я лишь топил. Качаюсь и скилл, делаю стиль. Работаем. Гуччи, Прада, Луи, на мне только Фенди худи. Дынди мне звонят из улиц, перестань липнуть, я не улей. Катим, катим, крутим, крутим, любовь тачки, но со вкусом кандалаки. Самые умные в кадиллаке, слишком душно. Холод на сердце и на запястье, порвано делим все, что набрали. Гардеробный зум, слишком много сумм. Если ты был в моей хате, ты листал лукбук. Фенди, 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 yeah. Фенди, 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 Фенди. Каждый день как понедельник, прыгнул в серый мерин. Каждый день как понедельник, бил быстрее денег. Даже не пытайся меня остановить, залетаю в твою тусу, будто баста набит. Забрал Фенди худи, она классно сидит, так идет под моей кудри, прекрасен на вид. На мне Фенди смотри, каждый день как будто бы фильм. Со мной рядом моя Dream Team. Фенди, 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 yeah. Фенди, 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 Фенди. Слышь?
Спасибо, Максим, Пашу и Егор.
Thank you, Maxim, Pashu, and Yegor. Friends, today we talked about a lot of interesting topics, and we saw that age is not a limit for creating large-scale, significant projects. Today, anyone can learn anything, master any skill, and work in any profession, thanks to the internet and a lot of educational programs that the government, together with companies and universities, is creating. The IT industry has a wealth of opportunities for those who are ready to work and develop themselves. I'm sure we're going to see more and more interesting projects every year created by young people like these. And we will do our best to support them. Today we've had our first online open AI lesson. As I said in the beginning, it's an opening, it's a kickoff meeting. We're going to make it regular. We're going to speak about all kinds of topics about AI and technology. We want this place to be a platform for exchanging experience among young specialists, and we want our audience to see that nothing is impossible. We want them to be inspired to learn and to try themselves. Good luck with all your projects, with all your endeavors. Have the best of health, and may good fortune be with you to make achievements and surpass yourselves. Goodbye.